I thought I had it all figured out. At 38, I'd built Morrison Construction from nothing into one of the most respected contracting firms in Charlotte. My wife Sarah and I had been married for 12 years, living in a house I'd renovated with my own hands in Myers Park. Our 2 kids, Emma and Jake, were thriving. From the outside, we were the picture of success. But that Christmas Eve, standing in my own living room surrounded by family, I learned that everything I'd believed was a carefully constructed lie. The house was full that night. My parents had driven down from Asheville. Sarah's mother was there, my younger brother Matt with his wife and their toddler. The smell of prime rib filled the air, mixed with pine from the 12-foot tree I'd cut down myself at a farm in Union County. Emma was showing her grandmother the new art supplies she'd gotten. Jake was demonstrating his remote control car to anyone who'd watch. I was refilling drinks, playing host, feeling that particular satisfaction that comes from providing for the people you love. Sarah looked beautiful in the red dress I'd bought her from that boutique on Providence Road. She'd seemed distracted lately, but I'd chalked it up to holiday stress. We'd both been working hard. I'd just landed the contract to renovate the old textile mill downtown into luxury lofts, a project worth $3 million. It was the biggest deal of my career, and I'd spent the last 3 months consumed by it. Maybe I'd been too consumed by it. "Honey, can you grab the wine from the kitchen?" Sarah asked, her hand briefly touching my arm. Her phone sat on the coffee table between us, screen up. I nodded, heading toward the kitchen, when I heard the buzz of her phone receiving a message. I glanced back reflexively. The screen had lit up with a text preview. The sender's name made my blood freeze. Brandon. The message read, "Missing you tonight. Can't stop thinking about yesterday at the hotel." Time seemed to slow down. The laughter around me became muted, distant. I stood there, wine bottle forgotten, staring at that glowing screen. Sarah hadn't noticed yet. She was laughing at something my mother had said, completely unaware that her entire world was about to collapse. I walked back calmly, picked up her phone, and handed it to her without a word. "You have a message," I said, my voice flat. She looked at the screen, and I watched the color drain from her face. Her eyes met mine, and in that instant, I saw everything. The guilt, the panic, the realization that she'd been caught. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. "Who's Brandon?" I asked quietly. The room had gone silent. Everyone had picked up on the shift in energy. "Mark, she started. "Who is Brandon?" I repeated, louder this time. She stood up, phone clutched in her hand. "Can we talk about this in private?" "I think we're past private," I said. "You've got a heart emoji next to his name. You were at a hotel yesterday. While I was working on that site in Ballantyne, thinking you were Christmas shopping." My mother gasped. Matt moved closer to me, a protective instinct from our childhood kicking in. Sarah's own mother looked horrified. "How long?" I asked. She was crying now, mascara running. "Mark, please. How long?" "6 months, she whispered. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Of her coming home to me, kissing me, sleeping beside me, all while she was with someone else. I thought about all the late nights she'd claimed to be at book club. The weekend she'd said she was visiting her college friend in Raleigh. The Tuesday afternoon she'd needed to run errands that took 4 hours. "Everyone needs to leave," I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. "Sarah, you too. Get out of my house." "Mark, the kids," she started. "The kids are staying with me tonight. You can see them tomorrow after you figure out where you're going to live." I turned to my brother. "Matt, can you take Mom and Dad to your place?" He nodded, already moving. My mother hugged me, whispering that she loved me. My father's hand gripped my shoulder hard, his eyes saying everything words couldn't. Sarah was sobbing, pleading. Her mother tried to reason with me, but I was done listening. Within 15 minutes, they were all gone. Emma and Jake sat on the stairs, confused and scared. I gathered them close, my heart breaking for them in ways it wasn't breaking for myself. "Mom and Dad need some time apart," I said carefully. "But you both are safe, and you're both loved. Nothing changes that. After I got them to bed, reassuring them over and over, I sat alone in my living room. The Christmas lights still twinkled. The half-eaten dinner sat on the table. Presents waited under the tree. And my phone buzzed with texts from Sarah, begging for another chance, claiming it was a mistake, that she loved me. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and began documenting everything. Screenshot of that text. Notes on every suspicious absence I could remember. I called my attorney's emergency line and left a message. Then I called Jake Henderson, my accountant, and told him I needed to see our business and personal financial records first thing after Christmas. Something told me that if Sarah had been lying about Brandon, she might have been lying about other things too. I'd built everything we had. I'd worked 70-hour weeks, sacrificed time with my kids, poured every dollar back into growing the business and providing the life she'd wanted, and she'd repaid me with betrayal. I sat there until 3 a.m, the house silent except for the sound of my breathing. The anger would come, I knew. But right then, I felt something colder. Clarity. My marriage was over. Whatever came next, I'd face it the same way I'd faced every challenge in my life, head on, with no illusions. The day after Christmas, I dropped the kids at my parents' house in Asheville and drove back to Charlotte with a pit in my stomach. Jake Henderson had agreed to meet me at his office downtown, even on a holiday. I'd known Jake for 10 years, since he'd helped me set up Morrison Construction's LLC structure. He was meticulous, honest, and today I needed him to help me find out just how deep this betrayal went. His office overlooked Trade Street, the windows giving a view of the city I'd helped build. I'd renovated 3 buildings visible from where we sat. That should have felt like something. Instead, it felt hollow. "Mark, I'm sorry about Sarah," Jake said, setting a thick folder on the conference table between us. "But I think you were right to call me." My hands steadied themselves on the table. "What did you find?" "Your personal account shows regular withdrawals over the past 8 months. Small enough not to trigger attention, but consistent. 200 here, 300 there. About 4,000 total. I didn't make those withdrawals." "I know. Sarah has access to that account." He slid a printout across to me. "But that's not the concerning part. Your business account shows 3 wire transfers to an LLC I don't recognize. 15,000 each over the last 6 months. Total of $45,000. The room tilted slightly. "What LLC?" "Harrington Properties. I did some digging. It's registered to a Brandon Harrington." There it was. Her affair partner wasn't just some random guy. He had his hands in my business accounts. How is that possible? Only I can authorize business transfers. Jake's expression was grim. "You gave Sarah signatory authority 2 years ago, remember? When you were doing that job in Tennessee and needed someone to handle payroll and vendor payments?" I remembered. It had seemed practical at the time. Sarah had an accounting background from her first career, before the kids. I'd trusted her completely. So she's been stealing from the business to give to her boyfriend? That's what it looks like. I checked Harrington Properties. It's essentially a shell company. Formed 8 months ago. No assets, no real business activity. 8 months ago. Right when the affair started, according to what she'd told me. This wasn't just about sex or emotional betrayal. This was calculated financial theft. "There's more," Jake continued. "Remember that equipment loan you took out in September? The one for the excavator and the new trucks? Yeah, $75,000. We needed to upgrade for the mill project. The loan documents show you borrowed $90,000. The extra $15,000 was transferred to Harrington Properties the same week." I felt my jaw clench. She forged my signature? Or you signed documents you didn't read carefully. I'm guessing she prepared the paperwork, told you it was for 75, and you trusted her enough not to double check. He was right. I had trusted her. Completely. So we're talking about 60,000 total that she's stolen? At least that I can find so far. I'd recommend a full forensic audit. And Mark, you need to freeze those accounts and remove her access immediately. File a police report too. This isn't just divorce material. This is embezzlement. I called my attorney, David Chen, from Jake's office. David had handled my business contracts for years. Now he'd be handling my divorce. He listened quietly as I explained everything, then spoke in his characteristic measured tone. "Get me everything Jake has. I'll file for divorce tomorrow and request a temporary restraining order regarding the finances. We'll also file a criminal complaint. With this level of documentation, you've got a strong case for fraud." "What about the kids?" I asked. That was what really mattered. "With evidence she's been stealing from the family business and conducting an affair, you'll likely get primary custody. North Carolina isn't a no-fault state. Infidelity matters here, especially combined with financial misconduct." After the call ended, I sat with Jake in silence. Through the window, I watched people walking on Trade Street, Christmas shopping bags still in hand, living their normal lives. Mine had detonated in less than 24 hours. "What are you going to do?" Jake asked finally. "Rebuild," I said. "It's what I do. I knock down broken structures and build something better. This is just another project." But driving home, alone in my truck with the radio off, I let myself feel it. The betrayal cut deep. Not just because of Brandon, but because Sarah had stolen from what we'd built together. Every dollar I'd earned thinking about our family's future. I'd worked through injuries, bad weather, difficult clients, all of it. And she'd seen that as an opportunity to take. I thought about the life insurance policy I'd increased last year, making sure Sarah and the kids would be set if something happened to me on a job site. The college funds I'd been building, the retirement accounts. All of it was now evidence in a divorce case. My phone buzzed. Sarah again. "Please talk to me. I made a mistake. We can fix this." I typed back my first response since Christmas Eve. "Have your lawyer contact David Chen. Don't withdraw any more money from any accounts. If you do, I'll have you arrested for embezzlement." Her response came immediately. "You wouldn't do that to the mother of your children." I turned off my phone. She still didn't understand. This wasn't about punishment or revenge. This was about protecting what I'd built and what my kids deserved. She'd made her choices. Now she'd live with the consequences. The divorce proceedings moved faster than I expected. David Chen was thorough and relentless. Within 2 weeks, we had temporary custody arrangements. The kids stayed with me during the week. Sarah got every other weekend. She'd moved in with Brandon Harrington, which made David's job even easier. North Carolina judges didn't look kindly on that kind of thing. The financial case was airtight. Jake's forensic audit had uncovered another $20,000 in questionable charges and transfers. Sarah's attorney tried to claim she'd been investing in Brandon's business opportunities with family money, that I'd given her authority to make those decisions. It fell apart under scrutiny. By mid-February, she'd agreed to a settlement that gave me primary custody, the house, and 70% of our assets. She'd have to repay the embezzled funds from her share of the business proceeds. But the real rebuilding started with Morrison Construction itself. I sat down with my core crew. Diego, my lead carpenter who'd been with me since year 2. Marcus, my site supervisor, and Rachel, my project manager. We met at a brew pub in Noda, away from any job site. "I need you to know that the business is solid," I told them. "The theft didn't put us under. But I'm making changes. New financial controls, new oversight. And I want to expand. The mill project is just the beginning." "We're with you, boss," Diego said. The others nodded. These people had built their livelihoods alongside mine. They deserved to know the truth, and they deserved to prosper from what we'd created together. I'd also started something new. My brother Matt had mentioned that a friend of his, a Marine who'd served 3 tours in Afghanistan, was struggling to find work after getting out. The construction industry was full of veterans, but a lot of them fell through the cracks. They had skills but needed someone to give them a shot. I called Travis, Matt's friend, and offered him a position as a carpentry apprentice. He showed up that first Monday at 6 a.m. sharp, ready to work. Within 2 weeks, I'd hired 3 more veterans through word of mouth. They were disciplined, reliable, and hungry for the opportunity. It reminded me why I'd started Morrison Construction in the first place, to build something that mattered, that gave people a chance. The mill project was taking shape. We'd gutted the interior, reinforced the old brick structure, and started creating the luxury loft spaces that would sell for premium prices. I was on site most days, working alongside my crew. The physical labor helped. There was something clarifying about swinging a hammer, about seeing tangible progress every single day. Emma and Jake adjusted better than I'd feared. Kids are resilient. We established new routines. Breakfast together every morning, homework at the kitchen table, movie nights on Fridays. I wasn't perfect at it. I burned dinner more times than I'd admit and struggled with Emma's math homework. But we figured it out together. My parents helped, driving down from Asheville most weekends. My mother would cook meals I could freeze. My father would take the kids to the park. Matt and his wife had us over for Sunday dinners. I'd thought the divorce would isolate me, but instead, it showed me exactly who my people were. In March, something unexpected happened. I ran into Catherine Walsh at the hardware store off South Boulevard. Catherine was an architect I'd worked with 5 years ago on a residential project. She was talented, meticulous, and we'd always had good professional chemistry. "Mark Morrison," she said, genuine surprise in her voice. "I heard about your divorce." "I'm sorry." "Thanks. It's been an adjustment, but we're managing." "I saw the work you're doing on the mill project. It's impressive." She hesitated. "Actually, I'm working on something you might be interested in. A client wants to renovate a historic building in 4th Ward into high-end condos. They need a contractor with experience in historic preservation. Your name came up." We talked for 20 minutes in the parking lot. She sent me the project details that night. It was a $2 million job, the kind of work that would establish Morrison Construction in a new tier of clients. I submitted a proposal within a week. By April, I'd landed the 4th Ward project. My crew had expanded to 15 people. The mill lofts were 60% sold before we'd even finished construction. I'd also started teaching a basic carpentry class at the community college one night a week, working with veterans who wanted to get into the trades. My life looked nothing like it had on Christmas Eve, but it felt more real, more purposeful. I wasn't building to please anyone or to maintain an image. I was building because it's what I knew how to do, and I was doing it for people who appreciated it. Sarah called occasionally, usually when she needed something related to the kids. Her voice always had an edge to it now, a bitterness. I kept the conversations brief and focused on logistics. Brandon Harrington's business opportunities had apparently not panned out. I'd heard through mutual acquaintances that they were living in a cramped apartment in Pineville, that she'd had to get a job as an office manager to make ends meet. I felt nothing about it. No satisfaction, no vindication. That part of my life was closed. By summer, Morrison Construction had become something I hadn't quite imagined. The mill project was complete and had been featured in Charlotte magazine as an example of industrial revitalization done right. The 4th Ward condos were ahead of schedule, and I'd picked up 2 more major contracts, a restaurant renovation in Elizabeth and a custom home build in Dilworth for a tech executive relocating from California. The veteran hiring program I'd started informally had grown into something official. I'd partnered with a local VA office to create a structured apprenticeship program. We now had 12 veterans on the crew, and other contractors were starting to ask about the model. Diego had been promoted to operations manager, overseeing all our job sites. Rachel was now VP of project development. I'd built a team I could trust completely. My personal life had found a rhythm too. Emma was thriving in middle school. Jake had joined a competitive soccer league. I'd become the dad who showed up to every game, even if it meant leaving a job site early. Those hours with my kids mattered more than any contract. Catherine Walsh and I had worked together on 3 projects by then, and somewhere along the way, our professional relationship had shifted. It started with coffee meetings to discuss blueprints that lasted longer than necessary. Then, dinner after a particularly successful project walkthrough. We both knew what was happening, but we were careful, deliberate. I wasn't ready to rush into anything, and she respected that. "You're different than I remember," she told me one evening at her firm's office, reviewing plans for a potential school renovation. "More focused, more present." "Getting your world blown up will do that," I said. "Makes you figure out what actually matters." She smiled. "And what matters to you?" "My kids. building things that last, working with people who show up and do what they say they'll do. I paused, and maybe not making the same mistakes twice. Smart man. We started dating officially in August. Nothing serious, nothing fast. Just two adults who enjoyed each other's company and shared a passion for creating beautiful, functional spaces. She met Emma and Jake in September, and there was none of the awkwardness I'd feared. She didn't try to be their mother or replace anyone. She was just Catherine, someone who made their dad smile. The financial recovery was complete by fall. The embezzled funds had been repaid from Sarah's settlement. The business was generating more revenue than ever before. I'd hired a full-time CFO, a guy named Richard who'd worked at Bank of America, before deciding he wanted to do something more hands-on. He implemented financial controls that made what Sarah had done impossible to repeat. I bought a small office building in Plaza Midwood for Morrison Construction headquarters. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. We had a proper conference room, dedicated space for Rachel and Richard, a break room where the crew could eat lunch. Walking into that building every day felt like validation that we'd not just survived, but grown stronger. In October, I got a call from an unexpected source. Tom Brennan, one of Charlotte's most prominent real estate developers, wanted to meet. Brennan Development had been responsible for half the uptown skyline. I'd always been too small for his projects, but apparently that had changed. "I've been watching your work," he said over lunch at a steakhouse on Tryon. "The Mill project impressed me. The Fourth Ward condos are exactly what that neighborhood needed. You understand urban revitalization, and you execute. I have a project I want to discuss." He laid out plans for converting an old warehouse district near the airport into mixed-use development, retail, residential, and office space. It was a $15 million project spread over 3 years, the kind of work that would put Morrison Construction in an entirely different category. "Why me?" I asked. "You've got contractors who've done projects 10 times this size." "Because those contractors think big means complicated. You think big means doing excellent work at scale. There's a difference." He leaned back. "Plus, I like your veteran program. My son served 2 tours in Iraq. He's struggling now. I want to build something that gives back to people like him." I took the Brennan project. It terrified me and excited me in equal measure. But I had the team now, the systems, the experience. We could do this. News traveled fast in Charlotte's business community. By November, I'd been interviewed for a feature in Business North Carolina about veteran employment in construction. I'd been invited to speak on a panel about urban development at Queen's University. Morrison Construction had gone from a respected local contractor to a company people noticed. And Sarah heard about all of it. I knew because her calls became more frequent, her tone shifting from bitter to something else. Regret, maybe. She started asking about the kids in ways that felt like she was really asking about me. How was I doing? Was I seeing anyone? Had I thought about the fact that we'd had good years together, that maybe we'd given up too quickly? I kept the conversation short. There was nothing to discuss. She'd made her choices, I'd made mine. We were better off apart. Matt told me he'd run into Sarah at a grocery store. She'd looked tired, he said. Stressed. Brandon had apparently lost his job. They were fighting about money. She'd asked Matt if I ever talked about her. "What did you tell her?" I asked. "That you were too busy building an empire to look backward." That felt about right. Christmas came around again, 1 year after everything fell apart. This time, my house was full of people who actually belonged there. Catherine and her daughter Sophie joined us. Travis brought his wife and their baby. Diego and his family stopped by for dessert. Matt and his family stayed the whole day. The kids were happy, genuinely happy, in ways I wasn't sure they'd been the year before. Emma pulled me aside while everyone was gathered around the tree. "Dad, this is better than last year," she said quietly. "It feels real." "It is real, sweetheart." I'd heard through the grapevine, because Charlotte's business community loves gossip, that Sarah and Brandon had split up in November. She'd moved into a small apartment in Cornelius, was working 2 jobs to make ends meet. The child support I paid was her primary income. Friends had stopped inviting her to things. Brandon, it turned out, had a pattern of targeting successful women, exploiting their resources, then moving on. Sarah was just the latest in a string of victims, though I suspected she wouldn't see it that way. I felt sorry for her in an abstract way. Not enough to reach out. Not enough to offer help beyond what the divorce decree required. She'd made her bed. But I understood now that hurt people, that whatever drove her to betray our marriage probably had roots deeper than I'd ever know. The Brennan Project broke ground in January. We had a ceremony with city officials, local press, veterans organizations. I stood there in my Morrison construction jacket, surrounded by my team, and realized that this was what success actually looked like. Not the house in Myers Park, or the appearance of a perfect marriage. This, building something meaningful with people you trusted, creating opportunities, leaving something behind that mattered. Catherine and I got serious that spring. She moved in with Sophie in April, and the house that had felt so empty a year ago suddenly felt alive again. Emma and Sophie became inseparable. Jake had someone to play video games with. We became a family in the way that happens naturally when it's right. I never planned to remarry, but I never planned for a lot of things. Catherine made me think differently about the future. She saw me clearly, the good and the damaged parts, and didn't try to fix either. She just showed up, consistently, honestly, the way partners are supposed to. The veteran apprenticeship program expanded into a nonprofit by summer. We partnered with 3 other construction firms and secured grant funding. We'd placed 43 veterans in skilled trades jobs by July. Travis had been promoted to crew lead. 2 of the guys I'd hired were starting their own contracting businesses with my help. Morrison Construction kept growing. We landed a contract to renovate part of Charlotte's historic cotton mill district. Another major developer approached us about a project in Raleigh. I hired my 50th employee in August, a project manager who'd worked for one of the big national firms, but wanted to be part of something more personal. I ran into Sarah one afternoon at Emma's school. There was a parent-teacher conference, and our schedules had overlapped. She looked older, worn down in ways that weren't just physical. We stood in the hallway making awkward small talk. "I heard about the Brennan Project," she said. "That's huge, Mark. Congratulations." "Thanks. You're doing really well." There was something in her voice. Not jealousy exactly, but loss. The realization of what she'd given up. "The kids are doing well," I said, redirecting. "That's what matters." "I know I messed everything up," she said quietly. "I think about it all the time. What I threw away." I looked at her. This woman I'd spent 12 years with, built a life with, and felt nothing. No anger, no residual hurt, no desire to make her feel worse or better. Just neutral observation. "We both learned something," I said finally. "You learned what happens when you make choices without thinking about consequences. I learned that I can survive losing everything and build something better, so maybe it worked out the way it needed to." She started to cry, but I couldn't stay. I had the conference with Emma's teacher, then a site visit, then dinner with Catherine and the kids. My life was full of things that mattered. Walking to my truck afterward, I thought about that Christmas Eve a year and a half ago. How I'd stood in my living room watching my marriage explode. How certain I'd been that my life was ending. But it hadn't ended. It had just begun again. Better this time. Built on truth instead of illusions. On my own work instead of someone else's validation. On relationships earned through consistency rather than assumed through legal documents. I'd built a lot of structures over the years, renovated dozens of buildings, created spaces where people lived and worked. But the thing I was most proud of was this: rebuilding myself. Taking what was broken and making it better, stronger, more honest. That's what I'd teach my kids. That's what I'd show the veterans who came through our program. Success isn't avoiding failure. It's what you build after everything falls apart. And I'd built something that would last. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button. What was the biggest lesson you took from Mark's journey? His immediate response when he saw that text? Or his decision to channel everything into building something meaningful instead of seeking revenge? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. We've got more stories about men who refused to be broken by betrayal and came out stronger on the other side. You won't want to miss what's coming next.